The spider madam opened its mouth and with eyes shining with rage, decided to attack. The Baskerville triplets began to move at great speed. Dodging the attacks, Wicker remained calm. Sinclair grabbed her magic staff with both hands and could not help but feel fear, while on the other side, Granville panicked. Lovegood Merlini was staring silently at Madame. Her eyes were full of fear. She did not know what this creature was. Seeing her expression, her friends panicked and asked her to react, insisting that they should flee immediately. While Wicker was fleeing the area along with the others, his gaze fixed on Madame and his eyes began to shine with seriousness, realizing that she was the cause of the unease he had felt since the moment he entered the tournament field. Wicker began to imagine a book, remembering that before regressing, the stories about Madame were nothing more than legends passed down as horror tales. It was only after multiple investigations that she was finally recorded in the Imperial Bestiary as an official magical beast, which meant that until then, there had been no reliable testimony from anyone who had seen her clearly. Even within the magic tower where the tournament was held, there were no precedents. He understood that this must be another variable caused by his return. All Madame's eyes were shining with malice. Wicker began to stare at it in silence. It attacked using one of its legs, and as the leg slowly approached, Lovegood Merlini became paralyzed with fear. Not knowing what to do, meanwhile on the other side, her friends drew their weapons ready to fight. Her eyes were full of terror. She couldn't move and couldn't believe she was going to be eliminated without being able to do anything about it just before the attack could hit her. Her team's tank, her friend, stood in front and used her shield to block the attack. But the difference in strength was too great, so she turned toward her with a worried gaze and asked her to step aside. Upon hearing her voice, Lovegood Merlini came out of her thoughts and her eyes widened in surprise. Luckily, she reacted in time and moved out of the path of the attack, causing Madame's leg to pass by her at great speed, destroying everything in its path. Once Lovegood Merlini turned around, her eyes widened in fear, leaving her in shock. Madame's attack was so powerful that it made Anna, her friend, crash into a tree. Her shield was broken and lying on the ground, and she was unconscious. Madame began to observe closely, and its mouth watered. Then the beast's eyes began to shine with excitement. Thanks to its sharp senses, it was able to detect the body heat of the other students who were in the forest. Without wasting any more time, it started charging towards them, passing by Wicker and the others. Randall fell on his butt to the ground, and his mind filled with surprise and confusion. He couldn't believe that it had gone somewhere else. He had thought he was going to be eliminated. Wicker, who was standing up, clenched his fist and began to observe Madame in silence. Our boy couldn't help but wonder if it was heading towards where more students were gathered. His eyes began to shine with concern. He couldn't help but wonder what the administration room was doing at this moment. He knew they shouldn't allow an entity outside of parameters to participate in the tournament. Wicker's thoughts were interrupted by Lovegood Merlini, who started running toward Anna to see if she was okay. Wicker turned toward them and became somewhat curious. Anna was injured, her body full of scratches, and her HP had dropped to 0. Lovegood Merlini's eyes widened in confusion and surprise. She couldn't understand why Anna hadn't been teleported to the waiting room if her HP was clearly at 0. The friend's eyes filled with fear. She couldn't help but panic since she didn't know how they were going to get out of this place now. She put her hand over her mouth and couldn't help but cry. While on the other side, Lovegood Merlini fell to her knees and began to gaze at the ground in silence, not knowing what to do now. With a confused expression, Randall began to walk toward them, extended his hand and asked what was going on, since it was supposed that even if they were eliminated, they should be returned to the waiting room. He put his hand on top of his head and started to go crazy. According to him, this made no sense. If a beast had appeared that did not meet the standards, he didn't understand why the tournament wasn't even showing signs of being suspended and wondered what the administration room was doing at that moment. Biker began to ponder in silence. Randall put his hands on top of his head, fell to his knees on the ground and went into panic. His eyes widened with fear at the thought that they had been abandoned. He came to the conclusion that the administration couldn't even handle the situation and had simply left them behind. Biker kept calm, drew his bow and asked him to calm down. Instead of calming down, Randall started screaming like a madman. He didn't want to die in this place. At the same time, someone made their way through the bushes and saw them. It was Dolus, Bakira and Hohenhe. Bakira, who had his sword resting on his shoulder, began to observe our boy in silence, while on the other side, Hohenhe began to show a calm gaze. Dolus' eyes widened with worry. She didn't know if they were okay. At the same time, in the administration room of the Magic Tower, the hologram turned red, Blue Whale, and the others panicked upon realizing that although the students' HP points had reached 0, they were not being teleported back. Now that one was injured, they decided it was better to get them out immediately. With a gaze full of concern, Vince Morg began to shout and ask Blue Whale to stop the tournament. Blue Whale's eyes widened with fear and confusion. He couldn't believe that a beast like Madam was in the forest and began to wonder if everything the Morg family had said was true. He began to gaze toward the ground with a confident expression, knowing that if the spider hadn't appeared, the Magic Tower could have won the tournament. Upon hearing this, Vince Morg couldn't help but clench his teeth tightly without wasting any more time. He got up from his seat and started running. With an angry expression, he grabbed Blue Whale by the collar and asked him to stop the tournament immediately, asking him if he wanted everyone there to die. Upon seeing Vince Morg's attitude, Blue Whale couldn't help but feel somewhat surprised. With a sincere gaze, he revealed that this was not possible. Even if they tried to stop the tournament, it would not stop. Upon hearing this, Vince Morg began to stare at Blue Whale with a furious gaze. Blue Whale remained calm, explaining that an entity that even the Magic Tower had difficulty controlling had been summoned, causing an overload in the system and the loss of its control. Noticing that they could not enter nor could the students leave, with a worried expression, Vince Morg asked if there was any way to solve this. Blue Whale began to move his finger and started to point at a bright spot on the hologram. He began to imagine Madam with shining eyes and revealed that if this creature was eliminated in the tournament field, the Magic Tower system would return to normal. At the same time in the forest, Dollars sat next to Anna, who was injured, and using her powers she began to heal her. Luckily, as the HP shield was consumed, the impact had been slightly mitigated. Her eyes began to shine with tranquility. She turned towards Lovegood Merlini and explained that Anna was only unconscious for a moment and if she rested well, she would be fine. Lovegood Merlini sat down beside, rested her hands on her knees and began to gaze at the ground with a lost look. She felt relieved to see that the situation here had somehow been controlled, but her concern immediately focused on the place Madam was now heading to. While Madam was attacking the other students, Dollar's attention was fixed on it. She hoped that the other students had not suffered harm. While she was trying to understand what was happening, Wicker, who was standing behind, began to ponder in silence. He began to look at the ground and his eyes filled with guilt, remembered that the monster Madam of 8 legs had a danger classification level S, a calamity of the type annihilation of nations whose mere existence was enough to break the wilt alive. He knew that this Madam was not the same as the one he had met outside the magic tower. She did not use her poison and all her multiple eyes had disappeared, which meant she now had blind spots. Her body, once impenetrable, showed holes in several parts. He suspected that she had been summoned to the tower with a distortion between the Madam of the past and the already dead one, as if she existed in an altered state of reality. Biker raised his head and his attention focused on someone. In front of him was Lovegood Merlini sitting and silently looking at the ground. Bakira and Hohenhe remained silent, not knowing what to do. Our boy clenched his fist tightly. He was aware that even though they could recognize those differences, there was no possibility whatsoever that they could defeat even a weakened Madam. He knew they first needed to recover their will that had been crushed by fear. To avoid further losses and fulfill their objective, he had no choice but to use his power. Just at that moment, someone decided to go confront Madam. Upon hearing this, our boy came out of his trance and his eyes widened in surprise. Lovegood Merlini grabbed her magic staff and began to stand up. She knew she couldn't stay here, sunk in despair. Because of her complacency, one of her companions had almost lost their life and she was going to take revenge. Besides, she wanted to protect those who were still left and wasn't going to allow anyone else to get hurt. Her eyes began to shine with determination, making it clear that she was the president of the student council of the Masira. Someone forcefully drove their sword into the ground and mentioned that Lovegood Merlini's determination fit better with the students of boot camp Varangia. It was Bakira. With a confident smile he decided to help her face Madam. With a worried gaze, Dollars approached her and also decided to help. She knew better than anyone that they couldn't sacrifice the students in this place. Lovegood Merlini turned around and began to ponder in silence. Not far from them stood Hohenhe. Everyone's attention was fixed on him, not knowing if he would also help them. Bakira was honest, although he hated to admit it. He knew they needed Hohenhe's strength. Upon hearing this, a smile spread across Hohenhe's face. Under the moonlight, he adjusted his glasses and with a confident gaze mentioned that, although it bothered him, he would accept a temporary alliance just this once. It was all for the victory of the magic tower. Biker began to observe them closely. He had underestimated them, remembering that even during the era of destruction, they were the great heroes who stood at the front more than anyone else. A smile spread across his face. Biker caught the attention of the triplets, making their eyes widen with curiosity. With a calm expression, Wicker began to ponder. His eyes started to shine with seriousness when he gave them the order that from this moment on, they would be in charge of transmitting his message to others about how to defeat Madam Eightlegs. At the same time, Madam was chasing the students, who were running for their lives. Their eyes were full of fear and despair. One of the students tripped and fell face first to the ground. Noticing this, her friend panicked. With eyes full of fear and tears, she reached out her hand toward her friend, revealing that she had twisted her ankle and asking for help. Upon hearing this, the friend swallowed hard. He didn't know what to do now. Without hesitating even a second, he turned his back on his friend, closed his eyes and started running for his life, asking for forgiveness. With eyes shining with evilness, Madam began to extend its legs toward the girl, ready to attack her. The girl's eyes filled with tears, knowing that this was not good. Just before Madam could attack, someone attacked with a fire spell, saving the girl by a hair. The explosion created a curtain of smoke. Madam's eyes began to glow, and when the curtain of smoke disappeared, it could be seen that it was intact. The one who had cast the fire spell was Hohenhe. He began to stare at it and started to cast another spell, realizing that his fire magic had done no damage to it, even though insect monsters should be very vulnerable to it. Fire began to emerge from his magic staff, and his eyes began to shine with excitement. Behind Hohenhe appeared Dolus, Sinclair, and Granuel, ready to face the fearsome madam. This is the end of the video. If you guys want to see the next part,